Welcome to another episode of Boring History for Sleep. Tonight, we embark on a tranquil journey through the ancient world of Rome, where the echoes of empires linger in the stones and stories of the past. Imagine yourself drifting back in time to an era of vast conquests and quiet struggles, where the rhythm of daily life pulsed beneath the grandeur of monuments. We'll explore the harsh realities faced by those who fought for spectacle, the rise and fall of a notorious ruler, the buried secrets of a doomed city, and the opulent routines of the elite. Let these tales unfold gently, like the turning of pages in an old, forgotten book. Close your eyes if you wish, and allow the steady flow of history to carry you toward rest. We begin with why you wouldn't last a day as a Roman gladiator. Imagine yourself awakening before the first light of dawn filters through the narrow slits in the walls of a cramped looted, the gladiatorial training school where you now reside. Your body, already sore from the previous day's exertions, protests as you rise from a thin straw mat laid upon the cold, hard earth. The air is thick with the mingled scents of sweat, leather, and the faint, metallic temps of oiled weapons stored nearby. This is no place of comfort. It is a barracks designed for discipline, where every moment is regimented to forge you into a fighter for the arena. As the morning call echoes through the corridors, a sharp whistle or the bark of a lanis, your trainer and owner, you join the line of other gladiators. Men from distant lands, captured in wars or sold into servitude. Your day begins with the unyielding routine of physical preparation. You heft heavy wooden rudis swords, replicas of the real blades you'll wield in combat, swinging them in repetitive drills that build strength, but also wear down the spirit. The sun climbs higher, its heat beating down on the sandy training ground, turning your skin slick with perspiration. Instructors, former gladiators themselves, circle like watchful shadows, correcting your stance with a prod from a staff or a curt command. Mistakes are not tolerated. A poorly executed parry could mean a bruise now, but in the arena, it spells something far graver. The rhythm of these exercises becomes a constant in your life, a monotonous cycle that grinds away at both body and mind. You practice the styles of different gladiator types perhaps, as a murmillo with a large shield, and short sword, or a retiarius, armed with net and trident, learning to anticipate an opponent's moves through endless sparring. The clashes of wood on wood fill the air, punctuated by grunts of effort and the occasional thud of a fall. Injuries are commonplace. A twisted ankle from uneven ground, a deep bruise from a glancing blow, or a cut from a dulled edge that still draws blood. Without the luxury of modern medicine, these wounds are tended with rudimentary salves, vinegar-soaked cloths, or poultices of herbs that do little to ease the persistent ache. Infection lurks as a silent threat, turning minor hurts into lingering afflictions that sap your strength. By midday, the sun hangs heavy overhead, and you pause for a meager meal, the first sustenance since the sparse supper of the night before. Seated on rough benches in a communal hall, you receive your portion, a bowl of barley gruel, perhaps flavored with a pinch of salt or dried herbs, if the lanista is feeling generous, accompanied by a cup of posca, a sour wine diluted with water. This fare is designed to sustain, not to satisfy. It leaves you with a hollow feeling in your stomach, a perpetual hunger that mirrors the deprivation of your existence. Conversations among your fellow gladiators are subdued, whispers of past lives or distant homes, but mostly silence reigns. As exhaustion dulls the urge for talk, the afternoon brings more of the same relentless training. Now, under the watchful eyes of spectators who sometimes gather at the edges of the ludus, wealthy patrons, or curious citizens seeking a glimpse of the arena's stars, you push through the fatigue, your muscles burning as you run laps around the perimeter, carrying weighted packs to build endurance. The sand shifts beneath your feet, clinging to your sweat-dampened skin, while the distant roar of the city beyond the walls reminds you of the world you re-isolated from. Freedom is a distant memory. As a gladiator, you are property, bound by oaths and chains, your value measured in your ability to entertain the mass. As evening approaches, the drills wind down, but the day is far from over. You tend to your equipment, polishing shields and sharpening blades under the dim light of oil lamps. The flickering flames cast long shadows, and the air grows cooler, carrying the faint aroma of cooking fires from the nearby kitchen's meals. Reserved for the staff, not for you. Supper mirrors breakfast, more gruel, perhaps augmented with a scrap of bread or cheese, eaten quickly before retiring to your mat. Sleep comes fitfully, interrupted by the groans of injured comrades, or the restless shifting of bodies. In the confined space, yet woven through this unyielding routine, is the ever-present shadow of the arena itself. On fight days which come with a regular but inevitable frequency, the atmosphere shifts. You are roused even earlier, fed a slightly heartier meal to bolster your strength, and marched to the Colosseum or a local amphitheater. The journey through the streets is a blur of curious stares and muffled cheers. But once inside, the sensory assault begins. The roar of the crowd swells like a distant thunder, growing louder as you wait in the hypogeum, the underground chambers thick with the scent of animals and fear. When your turn arrives, you emerge into the blinding light, the sand hot under your feet, the air alive with anticipation. In the arena, every sense is heightened, yet the struggle is as much mental as physical. You face your opponent, a stranger, perhaps a friend from training, knowing that one wrong step could lead to a swift end. The clash of metal rings out. The crowd's cheers a deafening wave, but you focus on the rhythm of combat, the give and take of attack and defense. Victory might bring a brief reprieve, a thumbs up from the editor of the game signaling mercy, but defeat means facing the possibility of a final blow, delivered with professional detachment. Lives are cut short here, not with fanfare, but as part of the spectacle, a reminder of mortality that the audience consumes from afar. Even in survival, the toll is immense. Wounds from the fight slashes that sting with every movement, bruises that throb through the night add to the accumulation of scars, both visible and unseen. The constant fear, the knowledge that each bout could be your last, erodes the will, turning strong men into shadows of themselves. Friendships form in the ludus, bonds forged in shared hardship, but they are fragile, often shattered by the necessities of the arena. This was the reality for many gladiators in ancient Rome. A life of discipline and deprivation that few could endure for long. Some rose to fame, earning freedom after years of service, but most faded into obscurity, their stories lost to time. The rhythm of their days, marked by sweat and struggle, stands in stark contrast to the legends that surround them. And as we reflect on this immersion into their world, let us transition gently to another facet of Roman history, the rise and fall of Emperor Nero, a figure whose ambitions shaped an empire. As the echoes of the gladiatorial ludus fade gently into the distance, let us turn our attention upward, to the marble corridors of power that overlooked the city. In the same Rome that demanded spectacle in the arena, there ruled a young emperor whose life would become one of the most enduring stories of ambition, artistry, and eventual ruin. We now follow the quiet, steady arc of Nero's reign, from his unexpected rise to the throne, to the moment when the empire turned away from him. Imagine the year 54 AD. The imperial palace on the Palatine Hill is hushed with anticipation and uncertainty. Nero, barely 17 years old, is suddenly elevated to the position of emperor, following the death of his adoptive father, Claudius. The transition had been carefully orchestrated in the shadowed rooms of the palace, guided by the steady hand of his mother, Agrippina the Younger. She had navigated the intricate web of court alliances, ensuring that her son would inherit the purple rather than another claimant. In those early days, the young emperor appeared as a promising figure, educated in philosophy, music, and rhetoric, with a youthful charm that won over the Senate and the people alike. The first years of his rule passed in relative calm. Advisors like the philosopher Seneca and the Praetorian prefect Boris guided policy, maintaining stability across the vast empire. Taxes were moderated, public games were generous, and the borders remained secure. Nero himself took an active interest in the arts. He composed poetry in quiet hours, practiced the lyre in private chambers scented with rose oil, and dreamed of performing before audiences not as an emperor indulging a whim, but as a true artist. To those close to him, this passion seemed harmless, a gentle counterpoint to the weight of governance. Yet beneath this surface, tension slowly accumulated. Nero's relationship with his mother, once close, began to strain as he sought greater independence. Agrippina had expected to retain influence, appearing on coins beside her son and attending meetings of state. Gradually, Nero distanced himself. surrounding himself with a new circle of companions who encouraged his artistic pursuits and nocturnal wanderings through the city streets in disguise. In 59 AD, this growing rift reached its irreversible point. Agrippina was removed from the palace's inner circles, and soon after, her life ended through arrangements made in the emperor's name. A quiet, decisive act that removed the last strong tether to his early restraint. With this obstacle gone, Nero's rule took on a different rhythm. He devoted increasing time to grand architectural projects. The most notable was the Domus Aurea, the Goldo House. Constructed after the Great Fire of 64 AD had swept through much of Rome, where dense neighborhoods once stood. Nero envisioned vast gardens, artificial lakes, and a colossal palace adorned with gold leaf, ivory, and intricate frescoes. The scale was immense, stretching across hills that had previously housed ordinary citizens now displaced. Construction continued day after day, the sound of hammers and the scent of fresh plaster drifting through the air as workers labored under imperial direction. The Great Fire itself had left deep marks on the city. Flames had raged 4 days, reducing entire districts to ashen embers. In the aftermath, rumors circulated quietly among the populace that the emperor had somehow contributed to the blaze, perhaps to clear space for his envisioned palace. Nero, in turn, sought scapegoats. His attention fell upon the growing community of Christians, whose beliefs set them apart from traditional Roman practices. Accusations were leveled, trials conducted, and punishments carried out in public view. Lives were lost in the arenas and along the roads, a somber chapter that lingered in collective memory long after the fires had cooled. Nero's personal life followed its own uneven course. His first marriage to Octavia ended in divorce and exile, followed by her eventual death under circumstances arranged from the palace. He then married Poppaea Sabina, a woman known for her beauty and influence, though this union too would end tragically some years later. A third marriage followed, but by then the emperor's focus had shifted increasingly toward public performance. He began appearing on stages in Naples and later in Rome itself, singing and playing the lyre before audiences that included senators obliged to attend. These events stretched late into the night, the theaters filled with the soft strains of music and the murmur of polite applause. As the years passed, the empire's provinces began to feel the strain of lavish expenditures. Funds flowed toward building projects and games, while military discipline along the frontiers required attention that was sometimes delayed. In 68 ad discontent, Crystallis, governors in distant provinces first Vindex, in Gaul, then Galba in Spain, raised the standard of revolt. The Praetorian Guard, once loyal, shifted allegiance when promises of reward came from another direction. News traveled along the roads to Rome, legions marching, alliances forming, the ground shifting beneath the imperial throne. Nero, now in his early 30s, found himself increasingly isolated within the vast palace he had built. Advisors slipped away, servants hesitated in their duties, and the city outside grew quiet with anticipation. In the final days, he wandered the corridors of the Domus Aurea, speaking of escape to the eastern provinces, or of taking up the lyre one last time. When flight proved impossible and arrest imminent, he retreated to a suburban villa with a small retinue. There, in a quiet room overlooking gardens, he ended his own life with assistance, reportedly uttering the words, "What an artist dies in me." The empire moved on. A new emperor was proclaimed, and the Domus Aurea was gradually dismantled or built over by successors, eager to distance themselves from Nero's memory. Yet his story endured not as a simple tale of tyranny, but as a more nuanced portrait of a ruler whose artistic yearnings clashed with the unforgiving demands of power. And now, as the palace intrigues settle into silence, let us drift southward along the Bay of Naples, to a city that time forgot beneath layers of ash. We turn next to the buried secrets of Pompeii, where everyday moments were preserved in an instant, waiting centuries to be rediscovered. From the marble halls of imperial Rome, let us now drift southward along the gentle curve of the Bay of Naples, where the air carries the faint salt of the sea, and the distant outline of Mount Vesuvius rises softly against the horizon. In the year 79 AD, Tismontine, long dormant and cloaked in vineyards, stood quietly before unleashing a catastrophe that would preserve an entire city in a single, silent moment. We turn now to Pompeii, a place where time paused beneath layers of ash, and where the ordinary lives of its inhabitants remain frozen, waiting patiently for discovery. Imagine the morning of August 24th, or perhaps October. As some scholars gently debate the exact date, still a quiet point of discussion among those who study the evidence. The streets of Pompeii are already alive with the familiar rhythm of daily commerce. Bakers tend their ovens, filling the air with the warm scent of fresh bread. Merchants arrange amphorae of wine and garum in shaded shops, while householders sweep their atriums and offer small offerings at Laria shrines tucked into corners of their homes. No one yet senses the subtle tremor beneath their feet, or the faint plume rising from the summit miles away. By afternoon, the sky is changed. A column of ash and pumice climbs steadily upward, darkening the light and beginning a slow rain of fine particles onto the rooftops below. Residents pause in their tasks, looking upward with mild curiosity at first, then growing concern as the fallout thickens. Some begin to leave the city through the gates, carrying what they can. Others remain seeking shelter within sturdy walls, trusting that the disturbance will pass as others have in memory. Through the night and into the next day, the eruption continues its measured progression. Pumice stones accumulate on streets and courtyards, piling deeper and deeper until roofs groan under the weight and collapse inward. Then come the pyroclastic surges, swift clouds of superheated gas and ash that sweep down the slopes, filling the air with an oppressive heat before settling into a suffocating blanket. In an instant, life in Pompeii ceases. People in homes, in gardens, in the forum, wherever they sought refuge are enveloped, their forms preserved as voids in the hardened ash that follows. Centuries pass. The site is forgotten beneath fields and vineyards until, in the 18th century, systematic excavations begin. Layer by layer, the city emerges again, streets aligned in orderly grids, houses with faded frescoes still clinging to walls, shops with counters intact. Among the most poignant discoveries are the plaster casts made by pouring material into those hollow voids left by decayed boats. They reveal people in their final postures, some curled protectively, others reaching outward, families grouped together. These silent figures offer a quiet testament to the suddenness of the event, yet they also raise gentle questions that archaeologists continue to ponder. One enduring mystery concerns the precise timeline of the disaster. Traditional accounts, drawn from Pliny the Younger's letters, written decades later, place the eruption in August, yet discoveries of autumnal fruits, heavier clothing, and braziers in use suggest a later date, perhaps October or November. Scholars weigh the evidence: carefully carbonized walnuts, pomegranates, chestnuts, detail adding to a slow, deliberate reconstruction of that final season. Another quiet enigma lies in the everyday artifacts that survive. Walls bear graffiti scratched casually by residents. Election notices, love declarations, simple greetings, like success was here. Erotic frescoes in brothels and private homes reveal attitudes toward intimacy that feel both familiar and distant. Gardens show planting beds and root cavities where trees once stood, allowing modern botanists to replant the same species and watch them grow again under the same southern sun. Household shrines, the loaria, appear in nearly every home, painted with images of guardian spirits and adorned with small terracotta offerings. Snakes, symbols of protection, coil at the base of altars. These intimate spaces speak of a deep integration of ritual into daily life. Morning and evening offerings of wine or incense, quiet moments of connection with unseen protectors. Medical tools found in surgeons' houses, scalpel handles, forceps, probes hint at treatments that blended herbal knowledge with practical skill, though limited by the understanding of the time. The streets themselves preserve traces of movement. Deep ruts worn into basalt paving stones by cartwheels, stepping stones placed to allow pedestrians to cross during rain. Fountains still hold their lead pipes, and public baths retain delicate stucco decorations overhead. In the amphitheater, seating arrangements reflect social hierarchies, while in the forum, statues of benefactors stand where they were dedicated centuries ago. Even the surrounding villas, such as the Villa of the Mysteries, offered their own layers of interpretation. Frescoes depicted initiation rites, perhaps into a Dionysian cultural figures in flowing garments, engaged in symbolic acts that scholars still debate. Preparation, flagellation, revelation, the colors remain vivid, preserved by the very ash that ended the household's life. Excavations continue today, revealing new houses, new inscriptions, new glimpses into vanished routines. Each discovery adds another thread to the tapestry, yet many questions remain gently unanswered. Why did some residents stay when others fled? What final thoughts passed through minds in those last moments? The city does not offer direct replies. Instead, it invites quiet contemplation, a space where the past feels close enough to touch, yet forever separated by that thin veil of time. And now, as the ash-covered streets of Pompeii settle once more into stillness, let us return northward to the living heart of Rome. We shift our gaze from the preserved world of ordinary citizens to the polished marble villas of the elite, where daily life unfolded in an entirely different rhythm, one of luxury, influence, and carefully maintained privilege. As the quiet mysteries of Pompeii settle beneath their protective veil of earth, let us return once more to the heart of Rome itself, as time, ascending the Palatine Hill to the palace world of the imperial elite. Here, far removed from the sandy training grounds of the ludus and the ash-covered streets of a provincial town, daily life unfolded in an entirely different cadence, one of measured luxury, subtle influence, and carefully cultivated refinement. Imagine awakening in a spacious villa overlooking the city, the first gentle light of dawn filtering through latticed windows onto floors of colored marble. The air carries the faint, pleasant scent of rose water and warmed oils as household slaves move silently about their morning tasks. A soft knock announces the arrival of attendants who draw back heavy curtains woven with intricate patterns, allowing the morning breeze to stir the room. You rise from a bed draped in fine linens imported from distant provinces, your feet touching cool mosaic tiles depicting scenes from mythology. The day begins unhurriedly. Slaves bring basins of warmed water scented with herbs, and you perform your morning ablutions while quiet conversation flows, perhaps a brief report on overnight messages from the provinces, or a reminder of afternoon appointments. Garments are presented for selection, a toga of pristine white wool for formal occasions, or a lighter tunic embroidered with subtle threads of gold for private hours. Hair is arranged with care, and a light application of scented oil completes the ritual, all performed with the practiced efficiency of those trained from youth to anticipate every need. Breakfast is served in a sunlit atrium or shaded peristyle garden, where fountains murmur softly and birds flit among clipped greenery. The table holds fresh bread still warm from the estate's ovens, olives glistening with oil, figs and grapes arranged in careful patterns, and perhaps thin slices of cured meat or soft cheese. Honey-sweetened wine, diluted to a gentle strength, accompanies the meal. Conversation is leisure light discussion of a new poem circulating among literary circles, or quiet commentary on the latest news from the Senate. Mornings often bring obligations of patronage. Clients, men of lower status seeking favor or assistance, gather in the vestibule, waiting patiently for their turn to offer morning greetings and receive a small gift of coin or a word of introduction. You receive them seated in a chair of carved ivory, listening to petitions with measured attention. A request for legal support, a plea for help in securing a provincial post, or simply the ritual exchange that reinforces the web of obligations binding Roman society. These encounters proceed in orderly fashion, each client departing with a sense of the hierarchy gently reaffirmed. By late morning, you might stroll through the villa's gardens, where paths wind between manicured hedges and statues gleam in shaded niches. The air is filled with the fragrance of blooming roses and jasmine, and distant views stretch across the rooftops of Rome to the hills beyond. Perhaps you pause to read from a scroll unrolled by an attendant, philosophy from Seneca, history from Livy, or verses freshly composed by a favored poet. The quiet rustle of papyrus and the occasional splash of a fountain provide a serene backdrop to reflection. Afternoons vary with the season and circumstance. On some days, you travel by litter through the streets to the forum, where political discussions unfold beneath the porticos. Senators gather in loose groups. Voices low as alliances are tested and opinions exchanged. You might speak briefly on a matter before the house, or simply observe, gauging the shifting currents of favor around the emperor. On quieter days, leisure takes precedence. A visit to the private baths within the villa, where heated pools steam gently, and masseurs work with scented oils, or an hour spent admiring a newly acquired Greek sculpture placed in the garden. Evenings bring the culmination of the day's rhythm. As the sun dips toward the horizon, preparations begin for the main meal. The cena, served in a triclinium, adorned with frescoes of tranquil landscapes. Guests, arriba fellow senators, literary figures, perhaps a visiting provincial governor, and recline on couches arranged around low tables. Course follows course in unhurried succession. Oysters from the coast, roasted songbirds, vegetables dressed with herbs, and delicate pastries sweetened with honey from distant apiary. Wines flow from silver vessels, each vintage introduced with quiet appreciation. Conversation turns to philosophy, literature, or gentle reminiscence. Voices blending with the soft strains of a lyre played in the background. As night deepens, lamps are lit, casting a warm glow across mosaic floors. The meal concludes with fruit and small sweets, and guests depart slowly, carried home through darkened streets by torch-bearing slaves. You retire once more to private chambers, where the day's correspondence might be reviewed by lamplight, or a final scroll read before sleep claims you beneath cool linens. This was the measured existence of Rome's senatorial elite world, built upon inherited privilege, careful alliances, and the quiet labor of countless unseen hands. Every comfort rested upon the broader structure of the empire. The taxes collected from provinces, the grain fleets from Egypt, the service of slaves drawn from across the known world. Yet within these villas, the rhythm remained serene, a deliberate contrast to the struggles endured elsewhere in Roman society. And so our tranquil journey through ancient Rome draws gently to its close. We have lingered in the shadowed barracks of gladiators, followed the uneven path of an emperor's ambitions, wandered the silent streets of a city preserved by catastrophe, and rested a while in the perfumed gardens of the elite. Each layer reveals something of the vast tapestry that was Roman life, its hardships and its splendors, its fleeting moments and enduring echoes. As these stories settle softly into the quiet of the night, consider how distant they feel from the comfort of your own. The past recedes like a dream, leaving only the gentle rhythm of your breath and the peace of the present moment. Allow your thoughts to drift, your body to relax fully, and let sleep carry you onward. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Good night. End of script.